Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. We have such a great episode today for you with guest Bria Gadd, who is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner specializing in hormones and women's health. She shares so many great things in today's episodes: what's going on in perimenopause for women, how we have health debt, and 4 key pillars for our health. Bria touches on peptides too, which are a really hot topic right now, and just so much more. I loved this episode. You can check out Bria on her podcast and her website, which I will link in the show notes. Thank you, Bria, and welcome to the show. Make sure you send this one to a friend and make sure that you're subscribed to our show. I'm also going to be a guest on Bria's episode coming up, upcoming, so I can't wait, and I will make sure to share that with you all as well. Bria is fantastic. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here with me today. We have Bria Gadd with us. Welcome to Learning to Glow.
Thanks, Jess. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I am so excited to talk about our topic. A lot of the women who listen to a lot of the listeners are in midlife and dealing with perimenopause or learning about it, which is one thing I think is so great that we are talking about it more because back, when our moms were going through it, no one talked about it, but there's still a lot to learn, and our listeners are always excited to learn more about it. So before we get into the topic, please tell us what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just have to say first, I love your podcast. I'm sure all your listeners already know that, but I hope they always review it because your podcast really provides a lot of value. I've been really enjoying binging it. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. So my name's Bria. I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is really a very lengthy, fancy way of saying that when people go to their doctor and their doctor says they're fine, but they don't feel fine, they know it's not a physical problem and they know it's a functional problem. And that's when someone comes to me. But I specialize in female hormones. I'm a personal trainer as well. I kind of come from a fitness background. And I am really big on helping women understand and connect with their own body, understand the messages of their own body. So that's where my podcast came about, The Period Whisperer. And that's what I really like to spread out into the world and how I like to work with my clients.
So tell me how you started and kind of became a specialist in this field because in this area, is that something that you were just saw oh, wow, there's a gap of knowledge here? And were you on your own personal journey too? Or tell us about how you came to get into this.
Yeah. Like most people, I think I got smacked in the face hard with some rough health issues, I think. And that's what really often pivots us into an area when they're well, I don't have any answers for this, but I have been in the fitness and wellness industry for women since I was in my late 20s. I'm 44 now. So I really spent a lot of years working with women on carving out time in the cracks of their life to work out and to eat properly. And that served me well for a while. But then around 37 for me, things just went in a different direction for my body. First, I actually noticed it in my clients. And then I really started to notice in myself, and it looked like just this kind of low grade fatigue all over the place. It started to be these heavier periods or greater PMS. I started having digestive issues. I started actually having this weird twitch in my eye that just never went away. Spoiler alert, that was from too much caffeine. So for anyone, if you're having these issues, more caffeine is not the answer. And then what really, you'd think those things, especially my period getting wonky, would drive me to my healthcare practitioner, but that was when my sleep started to go. So I was 37 and I thought I knew what I would do, at least about health, and maybe not about being a mom or being 100 other things, but I definitely thought I had this piece figured out. And I went to my healthcare practitioner, and she was really wonderful, did all the things, ran all the tests, asked all the questions. And I honestly, Jess, I thought I thought I was dying. Like I was Googling things in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, right? Of like, why do I have the twitchy eye? Why am I having night sweats? Why is this? And she's like, Bria, you're the picture of health. And I was like, what? I'm so glad I'm not dying of all the things that come up when you Google night sweats and twitchy eyes. But I was like, I can't, like at 37, if this is the picture of health, like something isn't right. And I think what I really learned in my deep dive of research after that, and then kind of going back to school for functional lab work, functional testing, really understanding is the impact of perimenopause into menopause and also the connection of it to the rest of our body. So that's what really, I think, drove me down this path. And I remember thinking, if I'm in the wellness industry and I don't know this stuff, like how on earth is any other amazing woman doing amazing things that's not in this industry ever going to learn these things? Because I had to do some digging. I mean, now you can't open up Instagram without being hit with something about hormones and perimenopause. But back then I didn't even know the word. So yeah, that was how it came to be.
You do not look 44.
Oh,
I was shocked when you said that. I was like, are you still like in your 30s, like early 30s? Okay. No, so you look amazing.
Thank you.
Shows you. I feel like people who live a very healthy lifestyle, it shows in the way that they look a lot of the time. But, and that's very interesting about the caffeine. I have actually had my eye twitch. I had no idea. I've admitted on this podcast, I do have a bit of a caffeine addiction. Yes. So but I haven't had the eye twitch in a while. So that makes me feel good.
That is good. That's it's a better sign than too much and fluttery. Yeah.
So you go to your doctor and they're like, you're the picture of health. Yeah. And I think so many people can relate to that. And just that feeling of, but I don't feel right. Like this is really a problem. Like I don't feel like myself. I don't feel healthy. And then you said like you thought you were dying. I feel like anyone who's been very sleep deprived and sleep is affected, you do feel like that because it's like everything else is so hard if you're not getting that basic sleep. So I was wondering if you could tell us, what did you start doing? Like, what are some of the things you had mentioned before we started recording and we were touching base about recording together, things that we can do to get out of health debt? I really want to talk about that. I thought that's where we could start. So let me know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think women are really exceptional at doing what is the right thing. And there's air quotes here if we aren't seeing this at this time. And not even listening to what our body says kind of thing. We're like, oh, this is the right thing. So I'm just going to ignore what my body is saying and going. But what I learned through this process is that so much of our health really comes down to energy supply and demand. I think we can start to kind of take the emotion out of it when we stop talking about our bodies and we look at it almost like money. So energy is our currency. And really, if the body has enough energy supply to meet the demand, then usually we do pretty well. If we have a surplus, great, we can invest it in things like fitness and all these other things and feel even greater. But what happens is most of us are really redlining our energy supply and demand in life. So, I don't know many women who aren't like running basically from the time their alarm goes off in the morning till the time they fall asleep exhausted or stay awake scrolling at night just to carve out a little bit of time for themselves. And that's not even to touch on, the impact of the state of the world sometimes on us or what we see on social media or, just the environment and how it's changed, let alone what we actually are going through in midlife, being moms or having careers and taking care of parents. So there's so much that goes on top of the workouts that we decide to do or how little sleep. So the challenge is that perimenopause specifically starts to add a massive energy demand because it's a transition, like all transitions. So anyone who's ever moved understands or changed jobs understands that it's like more work without much. There's no return necessarily on that time. So this transition is just like you're moving houses or some big change is happening, more is happening in your body. And all of a sudden, what I really have seen has happened for most women is where we were once juggling the balls, like, okay, just fine, can't fit anything more. And all of a sudden we can't juggle these balls anymore because now we have this greater demand. And this deficit between energy supply and demand is what I like to call health debt. And the problem with health debt is like all other debt is that it compounds. And if we don't start getting out of it, or if we start trying to spend energy on things that we can't afford, now we get further into debt. So where I think perimenopause starts to get a really bad rap, and where I think a lot of the overwhelm of communication we're hearing even about perimenopause these days is, we just think it's our hormones, when really it's actually all of the other things that have been redlining it and then now are just impacting the hormones like a domino effect. So for me at 37, that's really quite young. And although we know it can start early for people, and we kind of know the reverse puberty transition of it is happening, it really had nothing to do with my sex hormones. I have perfectly fine sex hormones at 44 with a very regular period, but I was struggling with many other issues. And that kind of comes down to, how do we get out of health debt, which is the next step.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us some more of the other issues? Because I think when I think of perimenopause, I think of my hormones are out of whack.
Yeah.
And you're saying there's so much more to it.
Yes. So there is so much more to it, because ultimately in a healthy nervous system regulated, all functions are working well. And maybe I'll define the functions. So first of all, there's energy demand, and then there's energy supply. Where we primarily get energy supply from is going to be sleep. It's going to be nutrition, and it's going to be pleasure and joy, right? These things really drive a lot of energy into us. So we might still have really good sleep, or trying to have good sleep, great nutrition, things that have meaning to us in life. But then we have the energy supply chain into the body. So that's where things like our gut really come into play, and our liver really come into play, and our thyroid and our adrenals. So when our ovaries actually retire in a healthy body that doesn't have health debt and is quite balanced, yes, of course, as all transitions, there might be some discomfort, and I don't ever want to minimize that in women, but it really should just be, if I correct it with hormone replacement therapy, I should feel like, for the most part, like I used to feel. But that's not what's happening. That's not what we're seeing for people. What's really the challenge is, why are the hormones off? And if it's not simply because the ovaries are retiring, then we have to correct these underlying supply chain issues.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So are you saying that some of the ways that we can get out of it are some of the things that you mentioned before, like starting with the nutrition and sleep and things like that? Yeah.
I always think step one, and I think these are things that people really should have a good look in the mirror, eyes to eyes with themselves, and be like, this is the basic foundation of health. I have to make this happen for myself. I have to work towards making this happen. And I think it doesn't matter what health person you talk to, you're going to start to hear these things over and over. And we just have to have that hard conversation of am I really doing these things? So there's kind of 4, I think, key pillars to health. One, of course, is sleep. So we can't always control our sleep, but we can control our sleep habit. Like, when are we going to bed? What are we doing before we go to bed to kind of wind down, right? Big difference. I can actually see in functional labs if someone's scrolling or watching high stress TV at night before they go to bed. We can see the stress happen, which is kind of crazy. Wow. And so just having consistency, almost treating our bodies a bit like a baby, and just resolving to the fact that we are human. And yes, maybe in our 20s, we could do all these things, but now our body's a little over it, and we need to be in bed, 10-ish at night or so, whatever that is for you. And we need to sleep for 8-ish hours and try to get up at the same time. So holding space for your sleep is a really important pillar. And if that is a mess, we got to prioritize that one. It's really hard to build any health without that.
Yeah.
I would say number 2, of course, is nutrition, as we all know. And I know there's so much overwhelming advice for people on nutrition. I really like to try to cut through it and give people step 1, which is, 1, we know that if everything comes down to energy supply and demand, we certainly want to make sure the nutrition going in is providing energy and not costing us energy. So what we want to remove things like inflammatory foods, because they're, 1, not providing much energy, and 2, they're costing our body a lot of energy and creating inflammation. So there's your minimizing your alcohol and caffeine, Jess, eliminating things like gluten and, dairy if it bugs you, processed foods, processed sugars, things like that we know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but mitigates. But the other key piece I think about nutrition, that if your hormones feel wonky and you want a solid foundation, you really need to regulate your blood sugar. And that looks like eating 3 meals and making sure that you eat enough in each one of those meals to keep you full until the next meal. So it can be that I know nutrition can feel so overwhelming, but it's like, if you just eat and make sure that it's enough that if 4 to 5 hours later, like, you're hungry again. And if you're hungry at 3 hours, you didn't eat enough. And if you're hungry in 8 hours, you ate too much. Like, we can really break it down to that simplicity sometimes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, no, I was just going to move into the next pillar. So if you have questions on the nutrition, go ahead. Yeah.
That's perfect. Move into the next one.
Yeah. So then number 3 would be movement. And I think, I really think I'm one of these people with a fitness background where I'm like, gotta get my workout in, no matter what. But fitness is an investment. It's an energy demand. Sure, it should give us energy back by like putting on lean muscle and all these wonderful things. But we sit in front of screens so much all day. I mean, I do. And we stand or we commute, and the body needs to just functionally move. So even before we're doing fitness, we really need to make sure that we are moving like 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day and taking time every week, 2-3 times, to actually work on mobility. So whether that's yoga, whether that's stretching, whatever you want to call it. So that has to happen before, like, for foundations. And then finally, I think stress management and pleasure. We can't find joy if we are really stressed. So we need to work on mitigating the stress that comes at us that is way more than it ever used to be in life.
I know, right? There's so many things. I think it's really interesting when you were talking about sleep that you said you can tell sometimes, what the person's habits are before bed.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to, like you said, eye to eye to yourself, like, be honest with your sleep, because I hear a lot of women say, I didn't get enough sleep, I can't sleep, all these things are going wrong. But taking a look at your habits is so important, like you said, because if I'm being really honest, the nights where I have a sleep routine and I do that sleep routine, I sleep pretty good. I can't deny that stuff works. And if I'm going to be out, like, especially me, if I watch a show that is stressful, that really affects me.
Same.
And so it's like, I even just any screen sometime I think can affect you if you're doing it too close to bed.
Absolutely. I went through this period where I totally watched all 11 seasons of The Walking Dead. It took me a while, but I had a Dutch test, which like measures our adrenal hormones and our sex hormones done at that time. And it was always at night that I was watching, and you could see my cortisol rise at night. I thought, oh my gosh, I got to stop this. And it does. It impacts the quality of your sleep, the integrity of your sleep. Even if you do sleep after that, it's still impacting it.
What do you think about people who, and I'm one of them, but what do you think about people who use sleep trackers to like get data and sort of figure out what your sleep score is and things like that? Like, are you a fan of those?
I think it's so individual, I think it's kind of like a scale for people. I think they're just different. If you wake up and you look at your sleep tracker and you're like, oh, I feel pretty good, but then your sleep tracker says you had like crappy sleep, and then you're like, oh, I must be so tired. So then you become tired. Kind of like if you get on it, you're like, oh, I'm feeling good, and you get on the scale and it hasn't really changed. So you're like, wonk, wonk. I really think we need to separate our mindset, and it's maybe not the best tool for you. But if you're like, oh, great, I did these things at night, I had a better sleep score, and we use that as data to continue to improve, I think they can be really beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any attachment to it. So when I see a bad number, I'm like, okay, what happened last night?
Yes.
Yeah. Because then I don't want to do that again. Or I want a really good night's sleep. So what did I do that day? I got a 90. And then I compare with I'm like, what did you get? I do. We're always,
I did better than you.
He never looks. I'm always like, come on, let's compare our sleep scores. But I feel like it's been really interesting to, if you have like a glass of wine versus if you don't, like that'll tank it. Or if you're on the screens or, another one, I remember I ate a really late dinner one night and my sleep score went down.
So it doesn't, because you were digesting instead of, which probably tells me that you have good blood sugar regulation, because sometimes if we have poor blood sugar regulation, we need to have a little snack. But if that impacted you, that's cool. That's good data.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So when you talked about the second pillar, which is nutrition, you said that trying to eat a meal, and I love how you simplify it, because I know we're so good at overcomplicating everything. When it comes to food and nutrition, it's like you get a headache because it's just like, it's so much, and it isn't that complicated. at first, like it doesn't have to be that complicated. So when you say try to eat enough so you can make it to your next meal, when it comes to blood sugar and trying to keep that balance, because that's so important. And I know we talk about, that's been a big topic too.
Yeah.
Is it better to do those big, not big meals, but good sized meals so that you're full and you can make it to your next meal without a snack? Or is that better for your blood sugar? Or is it okay to be like, okay, I ate at 8 a.m. and now it's 10:45. I'm so hungry, or I'm kind of hungry. Should I wait till noon, or should I just have a snack? Like, what's that for, especially through the lens of blood sugar? I'm so curious.
So if you ate at 8:30 and then at 10:30 you're already hungry, I think there's the information to yourself that like, okay, what I ate, the fuel mixture of what I ate and how much it was not enough for me. So of course you should still eat. I still think we should always eat when we're hungry, period. Because our blood sugar is likely dropping. We're going to feel like junk. Okay. So I think that's a really, we just want to listen to and again, if you pay attention, kind of like a sleep tracker, if you pay attention to what it's saying to you just for 2 weeks of tracking, how does my food make me feel a couple times after I eat? It's amazing what you can learn about yourself. And it takes a lot of the frustrating thought out of eating, especially since nutrition can be heavy and food tracking is not fun. It's not my favorite thing anyway.
Yeah, I know, right? It's something that we've all tried probably to do, and it's like very time consuming. And I know this kind of reminds me of eating more intuitively, you know, where you're going to say, this is what is a good amount for me. I can make it to here. I feel good in between. That's something that especially a lot of people who have been chronically dieting might be like a little bit of an adjustment and trying to experiment with that, because it's not like second nature.
No. And I think that's where I mean, first of all, there's eating for peak performance and like athletic demand. And then there's eating for healing and hormone optimization, really different types of eating in a way. So when we're trying to just hit these kind of foundations, and most of us, unless you're trying to win some type of fitness competition or you're an athlete as your career, we really need to start with this, that more like listening to your own body. But our world pulls us away from that intuition so easily. And our lives do, our kids do, everything, our partners do, sometimes our work does. So that's where I think, if you need structure, then you start with like, okay, I want to eat within 2 hours of waking. Mm-hmm. And again, I want to work on, eating a little bit of everything, all the macros. So we want to have some protein and some fats and some carbohydrates. And if that doesn't make us till, 4 to 5 hours later, then we know next time we should eat a little bit more, probably starting with protein, because most of us don't eat enough protein. And then if you have that structure, it can help us with this intuition. And after a while, you do start to think, oh, okay, I got this for myself.
Yeah. Then you can dial it in too, based on what you like and what fills you up. And that protein's such a huge piece. I started eating protein, I feel like it was last year, like consciously eating more protein. Yeah. And it does really fill you up, like more than the other stuff.
It does.
Than a bag of chips, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. It's annoying when things like that are right. But at the same time, you're like, oh, thank goodness. Now I have an answer.
Seriously. It is annoying. And even like when you realize coffee for breakfast is not the answer, especially at this age. So, and there was a trend going around. I think it's kind of tailing off right now, but where they were taking like pictures and memories from 2016 and comparing it to 2026. I don't know if you've seen this.
No, but I'm excited.
It's all over Instagram. And it got me thinking about where I was at 2016. And so I'm 48.
Okay.
And so I was 38 in 2016. And I was like, it got me thinking like I was thinner. I ate very similar to what I do now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you say to women who are like, okay, I haven't really changed. Mm-hmm. I haven't really changed. Like I have been doing these things and they worked great for me 10 years ago. And now all of a sudden I'm like here. And speaking of nutrition, a lot of us have put on weight and it's not something that we're happy about, you know? So what do you say? Like, why is this happening? And I know all of these things that we're talking about in the pillars of the health that we're talking about help us get back to where we want to be. But tell us about that transition.
Yeah. I'm sure it's annoying, but I feel like I always have to ask more questions, right, in these situations for people, because it's everything, at 48, every single thing that's happened in your life to you and your body and your brain is impacting where you are right now. So it is the answer. And then you have genetics. So the answer is always going to be a little different. But, I think, let's say you follow these guidelines of the foundational health pieces, and you're like, Bria, I'm doing these things. I've been doing them for 10 years. And yes, I now have an extra 10 pounds of what I call undeserved weight gain, because nothing has changed, but I've changed in 10 pounds, which doesn't make sense, right? I get that. So I think there's a couple options here. Like one, at 48, we do know you are at closer to that stage where your your ovaries are prepping to retire. They've done their job. They're ready to leave, which is a really wonderful thing, because it opens up, I think, a whole other world of mental possibilities for women. So if that's all it is, it might simply be that you need some hormones that could help you with there. Like if you are kind of layering in fitness and your nutrition is good, then, that might be enough for it. It's just the fact that we don't have the hormones. Like we need estrogen and testosterone to put on our muscle. So maybe we're losing muscle mass, and so that basal metabolic rate is declining. So maybe it comes down to simply like that. Also, when our hormones get a bit bajiggity, we can get more insulin resistant in our body. So then we want to look at, how do we reduce that insulin resistance in us? And is it only coming from the hormones? Because if it's only coming from the hormones, again, we can add in the hormones. But more often than not, what I would want to know is like, okay, well, are you pooping every day? How is your gut? Has your hair changed? Has your skin changed? Are you cold ever? We want to start understanding, like, is your liver congested? Like what's slowing things down inside of the body? And that's where I think kind of step 2 after foundations, we really want to optimize our hormones for optimal health and to be able to put on lean muscle. And that always is going to look at, what are these supply chains looking like? What's going on in your gut? What's going on in your liver? How's your thyroid? How are your adrenals? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think what I'm learning from, having experts like you on my show is like how important the gut health is for so many things to make the nutrition in our own bodies, like feeding your gut the right things is so huge. I just had a really amazing lady on talking about probiotics in the gut. And it's like, dang, like what isn't affected when you have a messy gut?
Absolutely.
And so it's a huge thing. Is that something that you see with your clients, that it's a big problem?
Huge. Yeah. And especially for hormones, the gut kind of hits our hormones in 2 ways. Like one, it's responsible for breaking down and absorbing the nutrients that become the ingredients and building blocks for our hormones. So if that's compromised, well, now we don't have the ingredients to make the hormones. And also it's a big part of the detoxing of our hormones. So if it's not getting them out, they start to recirculate. And that's when we really often will also see weight gain. So we're either seeing weight gain because the body's like, I don't have what I need, let's slow down the metabolism. Or we're seeing weight gain because the body's like, I'm not processing this estrogen, I'm going to stick it in your fat and it's just going to multiply there. So it causes quite a problem. And the other thing I think is so fascinating is I do end up seeing a lot of women, like I think it's obvious for women if they're having gut issues, right? It's like, are you pooping every day? Is it a solid poop? Are you having bloating? Are you having gas? Are you having acid reflux, right? Most people, if they have none of that, they're like, no, I think my gut's fine. But I run into a lot of women who have been very healthy for really long and their guts are really depleted. And you wouldn't know unless you went looking, right? And that's when we don't have that becomes really hard on the adrenals because they don't have what they need to do their job. It's very stressful on the body.
Oh man. And then is that something that you do testing for? If they look on paper like they wouldn't have a gut issue, but you have a feeling that they do?
Yeah. People don't typically come to me unless they're stuck somewhere. So I almost always will run something called a GI map, which is your gut testing, and then something called a Dutch, which is a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And then some blood chemistry so that I can really look at everything all at once to know, because it's rare that there's just one problem, because that's why it's not a physical problem the doctor can diagnose. It's this orchestra that has like one instrument went off and then other instruments went off and now we got to correct them all.
Yeah. And I think it can be complicated and it's like a puzzle
It is.
that,
Yes,
and a
I
lot
love
of
that.
doctors, they don't have the time to try to
No.
figure that out, or maybe not even the training. Like they don't get trained in a lot of this kind of stuff. It's like, if you look good on paper, then you're good. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that can be frustrating. And at the same time, I mean, our doctors are saving lives. They can't be good at everything.
Right.
We have to be responsible for some aspect of our health, but there is a pretty big gap in our healthcare, sick care. You know, it would be nice if we had more people, or if it was built into our healthcare plans to have someone that's keeping us healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
So I have to say, another hot topic item, and you've talked about it, I'd love to get your thoughts on them, is peptides.
Yeah.
So give us a little 101, like something basic that we can learn from you about peptides, how to use them, like what different types there are. Like, give us a little 101 on that.
Yeah. So before I really knew much about peptides, first I thought someone brought up to me, it was like, oh, collagen peptides. And I remember thinking, oh, you just take them and eat them. But collagen peptides are different than the peptides you and I are talking about, peptide therapy. Collagen peptides are really more of like an ingredient or a building block of what our body can use. Whereas the peptides that we're talking about are going to be more like the construction crew. And ultimately, and then also the next thing I ever heard about peptides that I think a lot of people think about is we hear about Ozempic or the GLP-1s.
Yes.
And we will talk about those, but there are hundreds of peptides. So I always want to expand that because there's so many peptides that do so many things. And once I really dug into the research and got certified and better understood them, what I now know, what these types of peptides are really short chains of amino acids. So we think of amino acids, we often think proteins, but proteins are about 100 chains of 100 or more. And peptides are really chains of typically 50 or less, so 2 to 50. And really the simplest way I can explain it is that they are like a messaging system. So kind of like our hormones, but they tell our cells in our body what to do. And most of these are bioidentical. So they're things that our body already makes. So they're not a medication per se. They're actually something our body recognizes, no different than some of the vitamins that we actually take. In fact, B12 is a peptide, glutathione is a peptide. These are really common things that people know and already take regularly, I'd say. So when we've been through a lot of chronic stress, as we have, I mean, there's really no way to deny that women especially are more stressed out than we've ever been because, I mean, I don't think I need to explain why. I think everybody knows, but I digress on that one, Jess. So then the messaging becomes almost like broken telephone and it starts to break down. So when we introduce peptide therapy into a body, then it can restore that messaging to the point where hopefully, ideally, the body can then start to do it on its own. So like a bioidentical hormone, but whereas when most women start hormone replacement therapy, it's because their hormones are never going to be producing that level. I believe in peptide therapy as like a temporary thing to restore what was lost and restore that communication.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So when you're talking about those kind of peptides, are you talking about, like, for example, glutathione? You can take that orally, like in a capsule. So that would be considered a peptide too, because a lot of people think like it has to be a shot or a needle or something like that.
Correct. I'd say most peptides are going to be either an injection, an oral capsule, a liposomal liquid, there are like nasal sprays. And then as I said, there are oral pills and something called trouches, which are like little pouches.
Never heard of that.
What we know, of course, is that the least effective are going to be the capsules because they have to go through the whole digestive option. And a lot of the times we don't break down the pills that we're taking. So there's a kind of a problem there. And of course, if you're having digestive issues, then that is going to make it even harder for you to break down and absorb that nutrient. So in terms of I'm looking to try some glutathione or something, I would always be looking first for like a liquid form in any way that you can. It's going to be way more effective for people. But yes, so there are many different forms. The most effective forms you're going to hear and that you're really going to notice a big difference from are probably going to be your injections.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. I've had B12 shots for energy.
There you go, B12.
Yeah, that was that's one that I've had a bunch of times. So tell me what you think about GLP-1s. So those are something that they're all over the place.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I think that I am a fan of microdosing GLP-1s and GIPs in especially for women in midlife, as long as they have done the underlying work. Because like anything, if we, some of the beautiful aspects of GLP-1s, because again, we are restoring a bioidentical peptide to the body. And in a microdose amount, we're restoring the amount the body should have. So to me, it's not that different. And it's quite functional when we're repairing a function from hormone replacement therapy. And what it does for people is it does obviously slow some of the gastric emptying, which I think is where a lot of the bigger issues come for people if they are taking a full dose. We don't really see any issues in microdosing the same way. But I think the real benefits of it is that it works on that insulin sensitivity that happens when the insulin resistance that happens as our hormones fluctuate. It works on the inflammation in our body that happens from long-term chronic stress and gets really sticky for women. It works on like liver support even coming out. And in fact, some of the research coming is that even in the smallest dose, where you might, even without the weight loss benefit, it's significantly impacting the metabolics and metabolic conditioning of people. So in a situation where someone has done that gut work, they have the foundations and they're still stuck, like we've foundationed, we've optimized the hormones and they're stuck, I think it can be a really beneficial option for women who are just feeling frustrated and stuck for personally a small period of time.
Okay. So and then the plan would be get off of it eventually.
Yeah, I think in my experience with my clients that, again, are doing the things, right? They have these foundations in place. So then we use the GLP-1 microdosed to help get through this insulin sensitive, to become more insulin sensitive, to reduce the inflammation. And then really, if they're doing all of these other things, the body should be able to continue doing this on its own. So maybe they take it for 3 months or 6 months. And then most of the time as we cycle off, they're able to maintain exactly, where they were or progress if they're going a different direction in their weight training or something like that. So I do find it really effective. And at the very least, it kind of calms a lot of the chaos in the brain sometimes that comes from just not feeling very good in your body.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. I love that because I know that has also been something that I've heard lately is the microdosing of it.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about side effects from doing GLP-1s. That is, something that would scare a lot of people from wanting to do it.
Yeah. And I think we shouldn't take these things lightly. I feel really strongly that you should, be talking to someone about it, that you should understand what's going on in your body before you take these things, because again, although it's not a medication, even though it's kind of talked about that and it's picked up by pharmaceutical companies, it is really like, it doesn't block things. It just repairs things and repairs pathways. It's still, if you are putting it into a body that's, for lack of a better term, a bit of a dumpster fire, then it's going to cause problems that are already there. If you're putting it into a body that is just a little stuck because of inflammation, you're going to see really amazing results without any side effects. So mitigating those side effects, I think, comes down a lot to what's the state of your body, what do you know about your body, and who are you working with to help guide you through that journey.
Okay. Oh, I love that. That's so good. That back to bringing our health, foundationally, like starting there, how that's so important. And, you mentioned the gut too, making sure that we're starting it from that place is, I think, such good advice. So if you could tell us anything else about, if there's a woman listening who's a little frustrated with being in perimenopause because there's a few side effects they're not loving, what would you tell them? And then after that, you can tell us where to find you and like how to work with you and all that. Yeah,
for sure. I really think perimenopause is the gift we didn't want, but that we need because this added energy demand really like shakes us down to being like, damn, I got to deal with these things that are bugging me. So I think it's like it's the universe shaking you by the shoulders. It's a big pink highlighter kind of coming in and being like, deal with this. Because honestly, Jess, we're in our 40s. I plan on being 80, 90. So we have plenty of time where we're not, hustling a new career, wondering what the heck we're doing with our life, trying to make money, having kids, where we get to live. So this is the time when your body's like, knock, 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 address it, like go after it and go after it hard. Like find the help. If you cannot do it on your own, and I don't expect that everyone can, and you shouldn't necessarily know, but get help, like do it. Let's like take care of it now so that you feel the best you should. Cause I do believe we should all feel a lot better than we most of us do. Don't settle for less.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I've been saying I'm old since I was in my 20s. I used to always just be like, oh my God, like every birthday after 21, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so old. But I have a different way of looking at it now, this is the greatest time, probably one of the best times. And so you want to feel your best. I mean, like not having energy, not sleeping, that is not where we should be. There's so much more that we can expect if we can, make some certain tweaks. So if somebody wants to do that and they're feeling overwhelmed or they don't know where to start, tell us how we can find you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you can come and check out the Period Whisperer podcast where we were talking over 300 episodes all about this kind of thing. So if you just need to binge some content around that is pretty direct, please come and hang out on the podcast wherever you get them. Or if you want to reach out directly, you can find me at briatheperiodwhisperer.com.
I cannot wait to listen to your podcast. I haven't started yet. My period... that's a whole nother episode. We're going to have you come back.
Come on, do live coaching.
Oh my gosh. Yes, let's help me with my period. But yes, there's so many issues that we can have in that department. So everybody go check out Bria. Thank you so much for sharing all this great knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.